Religious freedom to railroads. This year's Indiana General Assembly passed a number of bills on a variety of topics, but not everyone, not even all Republicans, think they were steps forward.
Well, tough one.
I would say a C.
Probably one of the most intense ever.
The 2015 legislative session will forever be linked with the passage of the hotly debated Religious Freedom Restoration Act and the damage it may have done to the state.
I'm not sure you can put a price tag on that.
I regret that vote tremendously. In the 20 years I've been elected official, there's not a vote that I am more ashamed of and has haunted me.
I hope we do think about things a little bit differently. We look a little bit deeper on things, and we look underneath the rocks to find out what potentially could be there.
Republican State Senator Ron Alting says he will work on a bill next year to make gays and lesbians a protected class under the state's constitution. Education was another focal point for the session. Lawmakers passed a 2.3% increase in K-12 funding each of the next 2 years.
I think it was a very productive session. I think we really delivered on what we said we were going to do. I mean, it wasn't an easy session.
But Democratic leaders say the school funding changes send more money to suburban schools and charter schools at the expense of perhaps 100 mostly rural and urban districts. None of the Tippecanoe County school districts are expected to lose money, but Gary Schools, which is expected to lose almost 5% of its students next year, will lose almost 8% in funding.
We did some very positive things as far as putting money in schools, but we didn't do it evenly. We didn't do it fairly.
A bill passed stripping Democratic State School Superintendent Glenda Ritz of control over standardized testing and giving those powers to the State Board of Education. But another bill failed, doing the same thing with control over the state's private school voucher program.
Well, it's better than it was.
I found it really hard to believe it was just Glenda Ritz. I think that there's probably an opportunity there to look at the entire kind of structure.
Still, lawmakers point to a number of achievements this session that may not garner headlines: banning powdered alcohol, funding for rail travel and perhaps the Hoosier State Line, a tax credit for teachers, new rules for annexation to better spell out a property owner's rights, and $30 million for the mental health field, training experts to identify problems and suicide risks, and some money dedicated for treatment.
That's probably one of the best things that happened in this General Assembly that very few people will read about.
In his State of the State address back in January, Governor Pence said this would be an education session. But State School Superintendent Glenda Ritz says it's been anything but that. She says all children, educators, and voters got were attacks on her office, further erosion of morale among teachers, and schools fighting against schools for funding.
There really wasn't much that happened in this session that was about education. It was all about, seeking power or changing power or moving power. We do have a lot more schools that are going to receive more funding. However, I'm disappointed that we also have a group of schools that are not going to receive more funding.
Ritz says the session is making her rethink her plans for 2016. She says she will consider a run for